Got it.
See. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the May Eye on ESI. This is in partnership with ACEDS and True Staffing Partners. So excited to have you here. If this is not the first time you're here, you already know what to do. This is an interactive conversation. We like to hear from all of you. We want your comments. We want your feedback. We want your questions. If this is the first time, same rules. Again, this is not about me, Jared, and Mike just being talking heads. This is about hearing from everybody. But first, we're going to share some things. And so joining me today is Jared Coseglia, CEO and founder of True Staffing Partners.
Hi, everybody.
And our president of ACEDS, Mike Quartararo.
Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everyone. I hope you're having a pleasant day. Happy May. And to all the mothers out there, happy forward-looking Mother's Day.
So I'm going to kick us off, Jared, so that we're gonna have some fun conversation. As promised, we're going to have a talk about what everybody's talking about, which I've been trying to avoid. We're going to talk about ChatGPT, AI. What does that mean for all of you? But first, Jared's going to give us a quick update on what him and his team at True Staffing Partners is seeing. So let's kick it off, Jared.
Awesome. So we're so excited that last month we were able to share some Q1 metrics and give you much more current reporting as the market has changed. And what we're seeing now is about the same as what we saw last month, which is about 92% of job seekers are accepting offers when extended, meaning we're not seeing a lot of people take counter offers or even receive counter offers in today's market, which is 180 degrees from where we were this time last year, where it was a bit of a frenzy of considering counter offers or not. And of course, my guidance is always never consider a counter offer. There was more job movement in April than in March. I think the ediscovery job market is slowly reheating from a sort of dramatic change in the fourth and first quarter of last year and this year. We saw the top of the job market remaining very thin, right? So if you're making north or looking for north of $200,000, there's a significantly less amount of jobs proportional to what we consider the middle of the market, which is that, call it $85,000 to $150,000 a year salary. There's still some solid stuff in the middle at $150,000 to $200,000, but if you're at $200,000, $250,000 base salary plus, it is a thin market right now. And quite frankly, the people that are getting riffed are the people that are making larger sums of compensation, not less. 87% of job requisitions are filled in the first wave of candidates. And the reason why we share this statistic is because it says, hey, it matters being first to the job market. So if you're serious about looking for a job, you don't want to come in at the end. Most of the jobs are getting filled with the first array of candidates that our hiring managers are perusing. So they're being decisive in this marketplace. Despite there being less jobs and less people looking for jobs, it is still competitive and people are approaching the market accordingly. Yes, there are fewer jobs, but there are also fewer job seekers. So it's not as if competition has somehow turned the table to the employer where they now have leverage over job seekers, because quite frankly, the ratio of job seekers that we're placing who are out of work versus gainfully employed is not dramatically one way or the other different than it was this time last year. There's still plenty of gainfully employed people looking and not as many e-discovery people out of work as in other verticals. And then finally, less than 7% of job seekers who receive a job offer then receive a counter offer. Right, and that matches that stat up at the top. So that's a huge.
Jared, I have a question around that.
Yes, sir.
Is that because those offers are significantly higher than in the past, and people are just like, "I'm good, I'll take it"?
No, not significantly higher than in the past, because I would say offers are, in terms of the margin that people are getting at the point of hire, are about the same, maybe a little bit less than where they were at the peak of 2022, which was Q2, Q3 of 2022, which is the highest we've ever seen, which was in the 30 to 40% range with people in that 3 to 7 year experience bracket, right? So there's an inflection point in when you can get the most dramatic increase in base compensation, and that's at about a 3 to 7 year experience range, right? If you've got 20 years of experience, you're not getting a 40% increase changing jobs. But if you've got 3 years experience and you're making $100,000 a year, yeah, you could get an offer at 140 in Q2 or 3 of last year. Some people got a lot more. So what we're seeing now is a very steady kind of 15 to 25%. That's about what you can expect at the point of hire, which is, towards the middle, the lower end of what we saw even at peak time last year. So it's not as if people are making less money or lateral or willing to take less compensation if they're staying within the industry vertical. They're still making increases in compensation because, quite frankly, there's not as many people looking for jobs. We anticipate that, or we estimate that about 2/3 to 3/4 of people in the industry changed jobs since the pandemic. So they're not looking necessarily to change jobs again. So that funneling of availability impacted by the economic climate has reduced the amount of people relative to the amount of jobs.
So quick follow up on that. So do I conclude from your top line, your 92% and your less than 7 getting counters? Do I conclude from that this person was going to change jobs regardless? A counteroffer just didn't matter.
So to directly answer the first question you asked, I think it has more to do with people saying, this is an opportunity for me to eliminate headcount and create greater profitability in my bottom line by getting through the next year without replacing the departure of some people who've left, right? That's a big piece of it, right? People are leaving and not getting replaced, or not getting replaced in a hurry, right? Because we're still in this state of limbo. My personal opinion is this is the recession. We're actually coming out of it at this point. It's just not happening as dramatically as we went into it in October of 2022, right? It's now slowly rebuilding. I kind of think the e-discovery market is like the NASDAQ. If anybody is, a stock person, the NASDAQ's doing pretty good this year. It's not like it's as dramatic as the fall off it had in Q4, but the NASDAQ and the job market, even on a national level, are kind of doing the same thing. Like we're holding the line, we're ticking up slowly, we're not going down, right? We're not having dramatic falls off the cliff. Things are rebuilding. People made hard decisions in the fourth and first quarter of this year about not adding headcount or letting people go. And I think they've recalibrated now to organically and smartly continue to grow their businesses.
Got it. Awesome.
Cool.
We have a quick question from attendees. Are these similar statistics as there are in our privacy industry and e-discovery similar statistics? And it's a great question because you and I and Mike discussed next month, we're going to talk a little bit more about privacy.
Yeah, so no, they're not quite the same. There are a lot of similarities, but what's different is the volume of layoffs in corporate America compared to the volume of layoffs in e-discovery. We are definitely seeing more people in data privacy and cybersecurity getting laid off in Rift than we are in e-discovery. Why? Because most of those people are working at corporations, and corporations are firing people to increase profitability. I mean, use Meta as the kind of hyperbolic example. And Meta's stock was in the 80s. Now it's in nearly the 200s again, or close to it. It's doubled or tripled since that time, and they laid off 25,000 people. So the two are directly related. We're not seeing that in e-discovery, right? We're not seeing that in e-discovery. What we are seeing is more a steady kind of recalibration. There were some layoffs in Q4, but there haven't nearly been the volume of layoffs in Q4 that we've seen in Q1. Q1 has been far kinder to the e-discovery industry and not so much to privacy. In e-discovery, only 10% of the jobs are in corporate America. 90% are at vendors and law firms. And in privacy, 80 to 90% of the jobs are in corporate America, and 10 to 20% are at law firms and service providers and consulting firms. So they're very different markets for those reasons, and have been affected by the national and global economy accordingly.
And we're actually seeing here at ACEDS a lot of people in forensics and cybersecurity now coming to ACEDS for training in e-discovery.
Yeah, so cybersecurity has become real transactional all of a sudden, and people are like, "Oh, e-discovery is actually steadier, work."
So I want to keep us on track because we want to jump into the AI.
I can explain that, by the way. I can explain that because cases that involve e-discovery, they're matter driven. A case doesn't come and go. A breach, an incident, a response requirement, a data subject access request, that's a one and done, right? You may have some follow-up, right? But it's not like a case
Right.
that can go on for 2, 3, 5 years.
Awesome. That's an excellent point. I just want to, so now, Jared, we're going to fly through some of these stats because I want to,
I'll do it in 90 seconds, honestly. Like,
Oh, I'm setting a time.
look, we can say very quickly here, executive search is now 3 months. It used to be 6 before the pandemic. It's still at half the rate, but it's now the longest we've seen that rate in nearly 3 years. Mid-market is ticking up a little bit to 45 was the average, but it's still hovering at around 45. What we are seeing is that contract remains pretty steady, right? It's staying at about a 2-week timeline. Fewer executive positions has empowered hiring managers to take their time looking and exploring more people. The speed of hire continues to slow incrementally, and the hiring cycles are faster than pre-pandemic norms, but it's still the fastest we've ever seen, to acquire talent. So we're ticking up a little bit. If you click one more time, this is what's changed here in Q2 of 23. We're actually seeing law firms speed up their process because there's a lot less vendors hiring now than there are law firms. And the reasons why, because law firms want people in the office. So these jobs have sat open for a little while longer, and they're now all getting filled. A lot of the business that we saw transact in Q1 was law firms. And we're going to see that trend continue, I think, into Q2 until we see spikes in business from vendors. And I think vendors are kind of steadily holding the line with resources, generally speaking, and law firms are looking to bolster. And not much has changed otherwise. Here, nothing has really changed, except for in the Midwest, we're seeing the price tick up by about 5, 6, 7% than what we saw last quarter. But the numbers are pretty much the same. Directors and managers, it's ticked up in the East. We have seen some executive manager, director level that support law firm, client service director type roles. They are starting to tick up a little bit, mainly because the clients want people that are very experienced in that level of role. They're not really looking for someone who's stepping up into the role that we found in this climate. And so the price tag has gone up a little bit. Service providers, nothing has really changed. The prices from this quarter have maintained, and the volume of jobs hasn't really changed. It's thinner in this environment than it has been in a number of years.
It's interesting, just trend anecdotal, if you will. Still seeing some movement in law firm reductions in force, but haven't seen any of that in the service provider space yet.
No, because they had it already. They were early to do it, right? Like law firms aren't quick to fire people, just culturally speaking, and neither are corporations. Vendors and consulting firms are. And so I think they made the cuts that were necessary earlier. They're also probably tracking their forecasting models a bit more aggressively, perhaps, than a lot of law firms. And therefore, they made those decisions before they were forced to, I think, which is in a lot of ways, I hate to say it, what probably is going to keep this country in a safe landing as opposed to a really hard one from a recessionary perspective, if at all. So look, workforce evolution, let's talk about remote hybrid really quickly, because it's really interesting what's happening here. If you click one more slide, you'll see.
We have a couple of questions.
Okay, great.
So has there been a formal survey around return to office for law firm corporations, 1 day, 2 day, 3 day? And I know this is something we've talked about on and off over the last few months, over the last year, about that enforcing people to go back to work.
Yeah, so click 2 more times here,
Okay.
Maribel, and you're going to see here the Q1 actuals and then our predictions. And then this is, I believe we're talking contract. Let's go one more time. Yes, here we go. This is what I'm looking for. So if you look in 2022, 89% of jobs were 3 days a week or less in the office. That's what we consider hybrid. If it's 4 days or more in an office, it's in office. That means only 11% were 4 days or more in an office. That actually is decreased so far in Q1. Even less jobs are getting filled. And that's because you're seeing more people move out of 4 or 5 days a week and move into the 3 or 2 day a week range, because that shift from that 1 or 2 days increases the candidate flow by 50 to 100%. Right? So if you've got a search for an e-discovery project manager at a law firm and you're requiring 5 days a week in an office, you're lucky to get a handful of candidates that are really willing to do it right now. Now you go to 3 days, you get twice the amount. You go to 2 days, you get 3 times the amount. You go fully remote, but you still have to be in New York in case we want you to come into an office, you're going to get 5 times the amount of people. I mean, it just dramatically changes, and it's still the #1 motivator for job seekers, and also the #1 demotivator for job seekers that we talk to, who are like, yeah, I'm open to that job, I'm not going into the office. There's no way. Like, I'll pop in once or twice a month for meetings and to, like, you know, shake hands and kiss babies, but that's it. And people are steadfast about that are job seekers who are willing to look at a job so long as it meets that and a few other requirements. What I do think is interesting here is you're seeing that 75% of that 90% in Q1 are fully remote. And what does that tell us? It tells us that those jobs get filled faster, right? If you've got a fully remote job, you got 45 days or less, sometimes 20 to fill it. If you've got an in-office job, it's going to take you somewhere between 45 and what we're seeing now is 60 days to fill it in office. And I think 60 is being generous, because I think that's really the product of a lot of things being open for a while and now starting to fill quickly, now that we're into the second quarter. So,
You know, it also begs this question, because I don't care whether you're a law firm, the government, service provider, software company, they measure, part of their overhead obviously is these seats, these computers, these offices. If people are only coming into the office 3 days a week, what's happening with that space? Is everybody everywhere sort of shrinking their real estate footprint and trying to reduce their overhead?
no.
Are they breaking leases? What are they doing?
I mean, amazingly to me, you know, who founded a company in 2010 with a fully remote model and has grown it accordingly since, and has no physical footprint. No, I mean, I have people that are getting office space for the first time and have been remote prior to this, that want a footprint. Look, I think it's maybe a good transition into our AI conversation. It's a way of thinking about it as, does this give us competitive advantage in some way, whether it's from talent acquisition or from unification, or does it replace an empty hole that we no longer need, right? And this is kind of the same thing we dialogued about on the AI conversation in EI. Are you using it for competitive advantage, or are you looking to replace things that no longer need human effort? Yeah. And that dichotomy, I think, is where the real interesting part of at least the conversation we had in preparation for this call starts. So I'll kick it back to you, Maribel, to drive it.
No problem.
But I think office space is the same thing, right? Because if you ask somebody who's getting office space, why the hell are you doing that right now? They're giving you a reason that draws them back to competitive advantage. And if they're reducing that footprint, they're reducing it because we no longer need it. People are working from home, and so we're looking to cut costs.
And a comment from one of our attendees is the DoD is trying to reduce the amount of lease space and require organizations to share building space. So I can see that happening all around, because they want to get rid of some of that additional space, right?
I mean, government agencies getting into shared space like a WeWork culture is kind of hilarious to me. But let's see what happens.
Yeah. Awesome. So we will share, we will send out the rest of the deck, but we go through those stats on a monthly basis. So if you missed anything, don't worry, we go over them every month. So again, if this is your first time, join us again next month. And now this is the part where we get very interactive. We want your questions, we want your feedback, we want to hear from you. So we've got this whole AI debate that's going back and forth. Everybody's talking about, am I losing my job? It's the robots are going to take over. What's happening? What do I need to do? So Jared and Mike, I know you both have some differing opinions when it comes to AI. So I want to kick us off. I'm going to kick us off with Mike first, just to hear his opinion on ChatGPT and AI and all your feelings about it. And now it's their time to just vomit it all out and let us know.
All right, I will commence the vomit. First of all, I think that ChatGPT is incredibly overblown, right? I think that there's some concern for guardrails in the world of AI. I don't think that includes ChatGPT. And it's really important that people understand what the heck this thing is. What is a language model? What is a large language model? It's just regurgitating text that it got from somewhere else. And it's predicting the next word that should appear, it's math, it's linguistics, it's not sentient, it's not thinking. It may appear to be, but it's just parroting something that it saw somewhere else. So I don't have some of the concerns that people have around ChatGPT. I think it's just a tool. It's kind of useful. It's kind of fun to play around with. But like anything else, you need to trust but verify, right?
Yeah.
I don't
want to say it's just parroting things, but we'll get back to that.
I'm laughing because my phone is blowing up with people who are watching, texting me directly their opinions about what you're saying right now, which is great.
And here goes the best, but parroting is a large part of the practice of law.
That is true. Now, here's my caveat, if you will, my caveat vomit.
Yes.
There are some things that are so rote, they can be completely automated. And I agree, those things, we're going to lose some jobs in that regard, right? You're seeing it already with some of the automation you see in document creation. I'm drawing a blank on what they are, but you can imagine what some of those things are. Those repeatable, automated tasks that people do that site checking is probably one that we probably won't need to worry about. And if someone's going to figure out a way for that to be, for citations in a brief to be what's blue booked and shepherdized so that you're not relying on a bad case, right? That can be probably automated. Still don't think we're going to lose jobs, but because someone's going to have to check that, right? There's going to have to be a quality assurance process.
Yeah.
So I see some rote activity.
Jared,
I know he's.
Well, I've got like 5 things that you said.
He's going to get his chance.
I want to disagree with.
I'm going to shut up in 2 minutes, and he can. I won't say anything else.
Because don't forget, this is only goes to 1 o'clock.
There are some rote tasks that will probably be replaced. I don't see that impacting lawyers who think and reason and advocate. The technology is just not there to do that. Well, let me just leave it there. Go, Jared.
All right.
Jared.
So there's a great article that just came out, I think, yesterday in Legal Tech News, where they quote Maura Grossman and a few other people that are in, and David over at Relativity, and you know, my takeaway from that article was 2 words: text creation, right? And I think we all agree that this is pretty good at text creation, right? I mean, I'll be really honest. We're already training modules here at True to help write drafts of articles for me because I've been published 300 times, and we can teach a machine to write in my voice, and it does a pretty good job. So I don't have to look at a blank piece of paper anymore. I'm bionic. And here's what I think you have to redirect your thinking about in any industry. This is not exclusive to e-discovery. It's not about the loss of jobs. It's about the reinvention of them. And I think that we do have to embrace the reality, Mike, that this kind of technology and its accessibility at a universal level now gives people 2 options. One, the opportunity to become bionic and therefore more competitive, right? I'm bionic. I can create more content. I can edit it faster. I can research more quickly, get to market more quickly with my opinions and perspectives. There's a million things here that are going to give people competitive advantage. Forget about how it applies to searching for data in a case, because I don't really think that's the use case here that really impacts legal. What it will do is force the people who do not want to reinvent to be faced with the reality that they will not have vertical and financial mobility potentially in comparison to their counterparts who are wielding this technology. That's how we've got to frame the conversation, in my opinion, because again, it's about some people are going to use it to replace rote tasks, but then now there is time available for them to do what? And the what is what will be the increased value of the individual employee to the business, to the lawyer, to the attorney, to the whatever, that will kind of separate the wheat from the chaff in terms of who am I going to invest in for the future? How are they creating more value by being economical with their time, by using technology that is really no security risk whatsoever if used with a modicum of savvy and thoughtfulness. But yeah, I don't think it gets laid over on top of cases and, you know, revolutionizes the e-discovery overnight. And I think we also have to accept and embrace, and then I'll shut up. This is legal. So there's always going to be a place for the people who don't want to evolve, who want to do things slower and the hard way. There'll be some place for them, but it won't be the best paid jobs. It won't be the most exciting and competitive environments. And I think that the people who are at least engaging in these kind of tools, and we're doing it on a massive level at a very small company here at True, are the ones that are going to attract talent, retain talent, level up and upgrade the talent they have into something more than they probably ever thought that they could be, because they've been doing lots of rote tasks for a long time, and now they're going to have the opportunity to add more value.
So here goes my take on this, right? Isn't this something that we've been telling lawyers? Become more technology savvy. We've been telling IT people in law firms become more legal savvy, right? This is where we're coming to with the e-discovery professional. These are, you know, legal ops, the legal ops teams, they have people who are doing e-discovery. Now, when you start to bring all of this, this is all about upskilling, right? Skills. What are you bringing to the table? How do you bring all of this to the table? Are you learning those new tasks? Are you learning those new tools and technologies that are available? What is it that you're doing to differentiate yourself, to put yourself ahead of the game? And we're going to need more data scientists, more data analytics. That's where we've been talking about growing volumes of data. With growing volumes of data comes more data analysts. Wouldn't that come more data scientists, more people who are prompt generators, right? Now you need people who know how to build prompts. And you would need that in a law firm. You would need that in a legal service provider, right? If they're dealing with LLMs.
But it's the wild, wild west right now, right? Like nothing's codified. Like there's no standardization. We're all screaming about, you know, legislation, much less application of all of these potentials. And so I think that to ignore it is to ignore evolution, not to get Freudian about it, but let's be Freudian. And if you're going to ignore evolution, you're eventually going to be replaced. So I don't think it's about a complete turnover, but I do think like, hey, listen, you know, that tennis elbow is gone. I've got a robot elbow now, and now I can play tennis all day long. Yeah. In fact, I'm not even doing it. The elbow's doing it without me.
So we've got some questions, right? And if anyone wants to jump on camera and ask a question, please feel free. But so we've got, how do we leverage our e-discovery experience based on what we're describing?
Mike, you want to start?
I'm sorry, what was the question? I was chatting with somebody.
How do we leverage our e-discovery experience based on what we're talking about?
Look, I haven't seen an e-discovery
work. 2 minutes, so go quickly.
I haven't seen an e-discovery workflow yet for you know, the latest large language models. I see a use case in training and tutoring and education. I don't see one in like the e-discovery life cycle. Someone may disagree, but I haven't seen one yet. If someone's aware of one, please share.
I'll answer that more broadly and say, I think e-discovery people have a unique skill of helping their lawyers understand, or if they are lawyers, communicate to their customers, business risk versus opportunity. And so I would start looking at where business opportunity and risk are in the application of AI, not the results of having actually applied it, and prove yourself to be valuable in that regard to your stakeholders.
And I love this point. One interesting additional value point is the increase in advisory work around shaping AI governance and advising clients on the use of these forms of technology and compliance with government rules, regulations. And this will eventually become a practice unto itself. So absolutely perfect point right there. And then
that illustrates that, you know, we may lose some jobs, but new jobs will be created.
Exactly. And that's exactly what we talk about, right? How do we continue? This is one of the points of this is, how do we continue to upskill? How do we continue to look at how do we differentiate ourselves from everything in the market? Let's see. So there was another comment. I think so much of e-discovery is understanding what the failure modes of technology and representations about technology are. I feel some of those skills apply directly to the use of generative AI. Let's see, what else do we have?
Well, I also think as a comment, ediscovery people have spent a career getting people to accept the reality that what you put in is what you get out.
Right.
And so leveraging the things that have been successful back when TAR Cal started and applying it to this and understanding that the patience and time necessary to put in what you get out has a direct correlation is something that ediscovery people are adept at convincing people and getting people to embrace and therefore beginning to adopt, right? We're not even at adoption yet. We're just at evangelism right now. And before you can even evangelize, you have to consider the possibilities and the risks. So again, like we're so early, like we have to start with like, it's not even an egg yet. It's like a zygote. So treat it as such.
Excellent.
I
One
thought Bill had a really good question about the
Bill Hamilton, yes.
yeah, the additional time. And there was a post. My memory is so bad I can't remember it, but I remember I commented on it that if someone could do something much more efficiently. The question was will things like generative AI be the death of the billable hour? And my clear response was no, never. Because if I can do something more efficiently, I'll just bill the more efficient time and go do something else and bill that too.
But that's the whole point of this conversation is what is that too? And it's going to be different for all sorts of different people depending on what is getting replaced in their job. And like, that's where I go back to opportunity. So this is an opportunity not to use AI, but to think about what you're going to do with the time that you now have because you've been integrating AI. And that's a really exciting possibility.
And I'll say I've been hearing the conversation about the billable hour going away for over 10 years and the different models and that, you know, boutique law firms are doing and things like that. And it hasn't totally gone away yet. So maybe it will one day, but I don't think it's anything that we have to worry about right now. So we are over time. Jared, any last thoughts?
I appreciate how many of you came to this month's session. I hope it's been helpful. If there are hot topics that you want us to unpack, please send them our way. We appreciate all your impact and thanks for having me as always.
Excellent. And feel free to send us questions beforehand as well. Mike?
No, just thanks. Happy to be part of the conversation. Thanks everyone for coming out today. Happy May.
Awesome. And for anyone who's attending CLOC, I will be there next week with some of our other ACEDS chapter members and advisory board leaders. Jared, I don't know where you are next, but hoping we get to see you somewhere soon.
Yeah, we'll be at the Consero conference in California, meeting chief privacy officers. And then we'll be in Toronto at the IAPP Canadian privacy event. And then we will have a presence at ILTA, Relativity Fest. And so, you know,
and so on. Awesome. Yeah. And then Mike will be at MER conference with records managers and information governance professionals later this month. Check out our upcoming events. And if you've got questions on anything, if you want to continue the conversation with us, feel free to reach out. Thank you, everyone.